Good evening.
Good evening.
So, I fear this might be a bit burbly because there's just too many good things to say about Midnight. Let's get the hyperbole out of the way. This is the best episode of Doctor Who, the best story since Remembrance of the Daleks, and I will take anybody on in that regard. You can take your Blinks, you can take your Dalek, you can take your Partner of the Ways and all that. I just think that this is a prime example of Doctor Who being a platform for a spectacular idea and seeing what happens. And in the same way that you can take the Doctor and drop them into a historical story, and you can take the Doctor and drop them into, any sort of story, I've talked about this many a time, something slightly different's happening here, because you've got what is ostensibly a very Doctor Who-y story. Dialed up to the max, I admit, but this is not dissimilar to something like Horror of Fang Rock for obvious reasons. We're trapped in one particular place, there's a threat. It's not base under siege from the Troughton days, but it's not dissimilar to that broad concept. But what this is doing is it's going further than that, and it's using a fairly traditional setup for a Doctor Who story, albeit one that is very, very refined and condensed and boiled down to its absolute most essence, and having it affect the Doctor in a way that I don't think I've ever seen before. And I think that is possibly the most, it's the piece de resistance of this, it's the icing on the cake. Because when you see the Doctor, and particularly for this Doctor, the hubris is catching up with Tennant here. Devoid of his companion, who keeps him grounded, who's his backup, particularly this companion, and put in an extremely stressful situation, this Doctor fails. And I was trying to think how many other Doctor would fail here. Early McCoy might, but later McCoy wouldn't. Baker wouldn't. Pertwee wouldn't. Troughton wouldn't. Hartnell wouldn't. Davison Baker, maybe. Eccleston wouldn't. But there is something about Tennant, and Tennant at this point in this regeneration, who just comes undone here. And it's that moment that in another story would be a funny line, where he yells, "Because I'm clever," and there's a beat, and everybody goes, "Oh, well, that's all right then, isn't it?" And you just feel the sort of energy and the self-belief drain away. But of course, you also feel that because you have started off with a cast of very relatable characters. I hate to say that, but they are. And I know people like these people. And by the end of the episode, all of them are sullied by this experience. Some more so than others, obviously. The young lady is named Dee Dee. She comes through it probably best of all, apart from the hostess for obvious reasons. But she's the one that comes through it, at least having kept hold of...
The hostess doesn't come off well.
Well, she doesn't throughout it.
She's the first person to go, I could kill him.
But the irony of it is, she's right. The irony of it is, if they'd acted at that moment on what she said, she wouldn't have died. The Doctor wouldn't have lost anybody that day. And that's the thing. The Doctor's unshakable faith in humanity is shaken here. And it's shaken in the most awful way because you do end up with some dreadful behaviours, particularly the mum and dad, who I've met many a mum and dad like that, I hate to say. And that sort of, the sort of arrogance of entitlement's a very big word that we use a lot these days, but there's just a sense of rightness. Am I right?
Yeah, just like something you said, a sticker of a dog.
Thank you for that. Oh, I see. The Professor, nice to see a Troughton back in Doctor Who. But the Professor who it kills me how, it just really annoyed me actually. I mean, the character annoys me anyway. But he sees with his own eyes the facts and then just tries to deny them. That is not a good academic. The academic should not behave that way. You have just been presented with facts. Adjust your worldview, not the other way around. Ah, dear, there we go. But this story, from to the very inception of it, you know, Davis wanting to write something that was contained, and then letting that tension ramp up and ramp up and ramp up, and it just getting nastier and nastier and nastier. And seeing what happens when this particular Doctor, bereft of his companion, ends up just losing, and nearly losing fatally so. It is an absolute masterpiece. And in a season that has got better and better and better and better and better and better, to have hit this high watermark.
Such a great season.
It's unbelievable, and we know what's coming next. We couldn't watch the next one tonight. It was just too much. It was just too much. Like both the kids have seen it before, obviously, because I absolutely adore this story. I just think it's sublime. But anyway, there we go. It's just it's in the conversation for the greatest Doctor Who story of all time, and you know, I deal in hyperbole quite a lot. But if you set this up against City of Death, K's Randazani, Remembrance of the Daleks, you are talking about a quintet now, in my opinion, of the sorts of things that not only demonstrate just how transcendent, meditative, how transcendent Doctor Who can be, but just storytelling can be. Do you know what I mean? The fact that those, in different ways, all four of those stories just take you to places that, you know, stories can do. And stories are amazing. And this idea, and this is a bleak story. This is Caves of Randazani bleak, isn't it? Nobody comes out of this looking well. But to have this part of the over, is that a word? O-V-U-R-E? Anyway, the canon of Doctor Who is just, we are blessed. There we go. I can say no more. Top 4 Doctor Who story. Oh dear, amazing.